Good evening, visitors, and welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Sharon Bown, and joining us this evening from the Australian Army is Corporal Jeanette McNeely. We warmly welcome Air Commodore Retired Peter McDermott, National Vice President, Air Force Association, and Wing Commander Michael Garside, Australian War Memorial Air Force Fellow. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that continue to serve, and the families who love and support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria, and RSL Queensland, who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by visitors to the memorial. If you are able, please stand and join in singing the national anthem.
Australians, oh, let us rejoice, for we are one and free, with golden soil and wealth for toil. Our home is good by sea. Our land abounds in nature's gifts of beauty, rich and rare. In history's page, let every stage advance Australia fair. In joyful strains, then let us sing, advance Australia fair.
The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths and floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Flying Officer James Magnus Inkster. James Inkster was born on the 8th of June 1922 in the Sydney suburb of Queenscliff, the son of Lawrence and Catherine Inkster. His father was a sailor. Growing up, he had two brothers, Lawrence and Victor. James attended Manly Boys Intermediate High School and afterwards found work as an apprentice lithographer printer with S.T. Lee and Company. Having served 3 months with the Sydney University Regiment, he enlisted in the Royal Australian Air Force on the 5th of December 1942, aged 20. Inkster began training as a pilot, and in September 1943 he received his flying badge and was made sergeant. He embarked for overseas service from Sydney on the 13th of October 1943, arriving in the United Kingdom in November. As part of the Empire Air Training Scheme, he was one of almost 27,000 RAAF pilots, navigators, wireless operators, gunners and engineers who joined Australian and British squadrons in Britain throughout the course of the war. Further specialist training followed in England, and on the 4th of October 1944, Inkster was commissioned as a pilot officer. The following January, he was posted to No. 467 Squadron, RAAF. With experience flying Rural Rays, Oxford Bombers, Wellingtons and Stirlings, he was now flying the 4-engined Avro Lancaster heavy bomber. On the night of the 2nd of February, Bomber Command mounted a slew of raids on targets in Germany, launching 1,200 aircraft. Some 250 were sent to bomb the town of Karlsruhe in Germany. No. 467 Squadron committed 19 aircraft, and Flying Officer Inkster was the pilot of Lancaster POJ, which took off from the Royal Air Force Base at Waddington at 7:51 p.m. Two of the squadron's Lancasters never returned, including Inkster's. It was later revealed that the aircraft had been shot down near the village of Karlsdorf, 12 miles east of their target. Also on board were Australians Pilot Officer Alan Pearce, Warrant Officer Bertram Webber, and Flight Sergeants Frederick Bean, Frank Everett and Philip Carter, along with British Airmen Flight Lieutenant Noel Colley and Sergeant Dennis Howdell. The bodies of the crews were recovered by the Germans and buried in a communal grave at the Karlsdorf Cemetery. After the war, the remains of the Commonwealth servicemen buried in Europe were examined and identified where possible. Inkster's body was identified and he was reinterred with his crewmates some 270 kilometres away at the Dernbach War Cemetery under the inscription, "In loving memory of our gallant son and brother." He was 22 years old. James's brother Victor also served in the RAAF with No. 10 Squadron. He survived the war and returned home safe. Flying Officer James Inkster's name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my left, amongst more than 40,000 Australians who died while serving in the Second World War. A photograph of his headstone is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Flying Officer James Magnus Inkster, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
lest we forget.
lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. We thank you all for visiting the Australian War Memorial, and we wish you all a very good evening. Thank you.